what can you tell us about your take insofar as governors, particularly arbitrarily deciding what businesses are essential and which aren't, and just this sort of like endless stay-at-home business that we find ourselves in, stay-at-home orders, social distancing, masks, all of this. There's no end in sight. And of course, all of our shows either being postponed or canceled.
Right. Yeah, no, look, I think I'm in the same boat with most of your viewers, as a guy who's, relegated right now to training at home. I'm training in my basement like so many of us are. My gym is closed. I'm in New York. I'm in downstate New York, which is probably, that and New Jersey are probably the two worst places to be in terms of reopening. I know that there are other states that have already started to reopen. We here, where I am in Nassau County, our governor set a number of criteria prior to opening. We don't meet it. And so you've got, gyms closed and most places here continue to be closed. I'm working from home. I'm in my house at this point. I'm not in my office. But I think it's beginning to change. And what I am seeing when you give the example of Lewis and others, I've seen some on TV, another gym owner who basically has said, look, this is going to be an act of civil disobedience. I am going to open my gym Monday. You don't like it, come and get me, but this is my right. Every state has had sort of different parameters, different, specifications of what's enough to open. In that case of the gym owner on television, I think that, the law in his state said something about you can't be open to the public. And so his argument is, I'm not open to the public. I am a members only gym. And so I'm not opening my doors to the public. It'll be by appointment, let's say, and the members will come in. And he redesigned the interior of the gym so that there was 6 feet, a minimum of 6 feet between the different stations in the gym. And he was going to abide by all of the reasonable precautions for health. And his argument was, who determines what's an essential business and what's not? So we have liquor stores that are deemed essential businesses, and we've got gyms, which, it is something that's healthful and potentially protects against getting sick, makes you healthier, and better able to withstand, the effects of the coronavirus. The argument for him is that it doesn't make sense. And I'm hearing more and more, and I have clients who are contacting me and saying, hey, Rick, how do I reopen my gym? I want to take a stand. It's going to be interesting to see what Lewis is going to do. He's in California, which has, like New York, also has very, very strict lockdowns. Many states are now reopening, and even gyms are now reopening in a lot of states. Whether this is a constitutional deprivation, whether it's a violation constitutionally, we'll see what happens. Lawsuits would have to be filed challenging these executive orders from some of these governors. And judges would have to determine whether in this kind of unprecedented global pandemic, whether those orders are constitutional or unconstitutional. It may vary by state, where states that have a certain type of politics versus states that have a different partisan politic position may have different rulings on some of those challenges.
I appreciate what President Trump did in the sense that he didn't, he didn't, like, the federal government's not telling the union what to do. He's letting each governor, because again, what's good for Florida might not be good for Washington State. The thing is, some of these governors, though, I almost feel like they're on a power trip of some sort, because some of their decisions almost don't even make sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, here in New York, there's, it's not only state by state, it's within the state. So there are now some upstate New York counties that are going to begin opening, but the county that I'm in, where I live, where I work, where I shop, where I train, right now there's no definite date for getting back to any of that. And look, we certainly want to protect the public. We certainly don't want the hospitals to be overrun. All of that makes sense. The flattening of the curve concept makes sense to prevent healthcare workers and hospital beds from being overrun. But there's also a lot of harm in keeping businesses closed longer than need be. And it's not just some speculative, academic, well, it's economic harm. I mean, these are people's lives, people who put decades of work into a small business, a family-run business for sometimes generations, now having to close its doors and potentially never open again. That's not right.
Gold's Gym International. I wrote an article about this for Iron Magazine. Now, obviously, most Gold Gyms are franchise owners, so it doesn't affect them. But Gold's Gym International just filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection because they don't have any money coming in, and their creditors like pay me, and but you figure that's an international corporation, Gold's Gym. But what about a mom and pop shop? Like you said, if they close their doors, they may never open again. Now,
right.
I wanted to ask you real quick too is here in Louisville, I heard some tips. The little birds told me in my ear that there was a couple of gyms that were, they were doing, I think, 10 people in per hour, that sort of thing. And there was a little rumor that those gyms were going to get raided. And I'm wondering what does that actually look like, Rick? What kind of what does that, is that like when they raided Iron Addicts? I mean, that's a completely different thing, but is that what I mean, I'm trying to think, what does it look like a gym getting raided? Is it cops in ski masks, SWAT team, what? And the poor people in there, do they get jammed up? Do they just for working out? I mean, it's getting to the point where I don't like using terms like police state, but you look at Northern Virginia, they've got curfews. It's starting to look a little scary.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, a year from now or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, whenever this is all just sort of a distant memory, when we look back on it, how we will see it. There are decisions that we make as a country that, we look back on and we say, what were we thinking? How did we do that?
And I really like your comparison to civil rights because it's really starting to feel like that. Right. If you don't fight for your rights, you're not going to have them, kind of thing.
Right. Well, I think we're starting to see more of that. I'm seeing more threats of civil disobedience, and I think that's going to continue to grow, and whether that will help pressure some movements towards safe reopening. Obviously, nobody wants, I think we need to act responsibly. There's two sides to this, and those who are expressing civil disobedience in the wrong ways by irresponsibility, that's also not an answer.
No, 100%. And I think, like you had said earlier too, it has to be nonviolent, it has to be, which is important. Something that, I don't give Dave Palumbo a lot of kudos because, I love Dave, but we just kind of butt heads a lot. But when he had you, Lewis,
Dave's an old client of mine, and years ago, and a friend. And years ago, he would come to my office when he had a little white dog named Bella, and at the time, I had a little white dog named Lucky, and Bella and Lucky would play and run around the office, and my staff got a huge kick out of this. At the time, Dave was like 280 pounds, and would come this monster who could barely fit through my doorway with this dog that was no bigger than his fist, and suddenly the two of them were running around. But yes, so yeah, well, you and Dave have your issues, but that's okay.
So, and I'm sorry for the loss of your dog too, because I know how close, and I told you about Bruno. A lot of people always ask me, why do you have a dog as your Facebook picture? Why don't you? I lost him 9 years ago, and so whenever I go on Facebook, I see him. He's always with me, and I know that Lucky's always with you.
Trust me, I believe me. Lucky was my first dog ever. So, that was a tough one. And anybody who follows me on either Facebook or Instagram, Rick Collins, ESQ, if you scroll down, you'll see pictures of Lucky, and I'll occasionally, put up a picture, sometimes one that I've never shared before. So, but trust me, and I'm sorry for the loss of your dog too.
Thank you. And it always hurts. But, What I was going to tell you about Dave, though, that I really liked that he did when he was talking to Lewis and they were doing the interview. It was only like 2 or 3 days ago. I guess Lewis was saying that after they arrested him or were going to arrest him, they said, well, who's in charge? Because I think their ultimate goal wasn't just to obviously arrest Lewis, but they wanted to close the gym down.
Right.
And they couldn't figure out who was in charge. And Dave said, wouldn't it have been cool if all the members raised their hands and said, I'm in charge, I'm in charge. So basically, and that's, again, civil disobedience. You have to arrest everybody, to shut this place down. And that I thought was a really good, illustration Dave made. I thought that was like straight out of the civil rights playbook.
Yeah. Wow.
All right.
Well, thank you, Christian, for spending a little time with me. I appreciate it.
And any links, please? Your website. You have an amazing website for your law firm, your Facebook, your Instagram, anything that you'd like to share, because I have a feeling this interview is going to be seen a lot on YouTube, but especially on Facebook. The views on Facebook, what's crazy is they don't communicate, but you can totally add them up, and people need this. So if you can share all your links, please, your phone number, everything, and get all that.
So steroidlaw.com, if you're interested in performance drugs, steroidlaw.com is a great place to start. There's a blog there. You can scroll, you can search, you can find good information there. I have a personal website, which is rickcollins.com. So if you want to see what's going on with me, there's a lot of information there. I am active on social media, so you can find me on Facebook. Rick Collins Online is my public page on Facebook, and on Instagram, it's Rick Collins ESQ for lawyer. And I'm pretty active on Instagram. I also have a Twitter account, also Rick Collins ESQ, and I try to share some information on all of those places. It's kind of a mix of what I'm up to personally, some training stuff as well, and some important legal information or information about anabolic steroids. Obviously, if anybody needs me in the context of a criminal defense issue or a legal question or something dealing with a dietary supplement product or a brand, I'm very happy to help. You can reach me at 516-294-0300. That's my law office. Because of the pandemic, we were working from home now, but that number will come to me and I'll be able to get back to you. Christian, I really appreciate you giving me the chance to share my thoughts on SARMs. I'd love to come back. You and I have talked before. We've sat down at the Arnold Classic before, and so there's a million subjects that we could talk about. We could talk more about anabolic steroids. We could talk about rights when somebody's confronted with law enforcement questions, when somebody is asked about consent to a search, when somebody orders a package in the mail, and what rights are there regarding whether that package can be opened by law enforcement. The list goes on and on of stuff that we could talk about, and we'll get back together and do some more chatting.
Definitely. Also, we can talk a little bit about the silent listening post if anybody wants to know what that is, in the holding cell. That's a very interesting topic as well. And of course, I believe if folks go on Amazon, can they find Legal Muscle, that amazing book you wrote?
Wow. So Legal Muscle is out of print. I've seen some copies floating around on eBay at ridiculously high prices. But yeah, Legal Muscle was, at some point, maybe I'll do an e-version, an updated e-version of it. But my column in Muscular Development magazine is also usually couple of months later, or some point later, brought online at musculardevelopment.com, so people can read some of my more recent writings there. And a lot of the information that was in Legal Muscle is probably collectively on the Muscular Development website or steroidlaw.com.
Awesome. But please try to get that ebook out, because it'll sell. It's a great book. It's a timeless book. So I want to thank you very, very much for the lawyer extraordinaire. I'm a lawyer too, but he's a lawyer extraordinaire, Rick Collins. This is Christian Duke, StrengthAddicts.com.
Thank you.